Hey, Marianne.
Um, I there's so much to learn. It's mind-boggling, and I'm I have experiences, but I don't even have the language to describe what happens. But I've been thinking a lot at the end of the weekend.
Mhm.
Um, my body was feeling very. I was tired.
Mhm.
I was in a lot of pain.
Mhm.
Um, and so much so that I laid on my bed. I was inhaling, I could hear your voice, so I was following along. And then we came to the point where I don't know uh, if I'm even pronouncing the name right. Um, oil Parcellus or something.
Oh, Paracelsus. Yeah, yeah.
Celsius. Uh,
Mhm.
it was around that time. Um, and we had also there were other oils too that I felt drawn to, but suddenly I went from being so very uncomfortable, and then it was like a light went on, and I didn't have any more pain. And
Yeah,
that
I really like that. In fact, we were making some
oh
body
yeah,
tonics today as like a little experiment to start like rubbing on the abdomen and the body. Just I'd been doing it before. Like I'd gotten some massages with that blend, and man, it just knocks me out. Like knocks me out to the point where it takes me a day or two to feel like I'm back to my alerted self, because I just want to like, oh, I just want to sleep for a while. And the idea is you're going into that is specifically for parasympathetic activity, is specifically to help stimulate parasympathetic function, which is rest and repair, but also it helps to let go of like the old traumas and things. It's not necessarily specific to trauma, but it's because you're you're fortifying and kind of stimulating that parasympathetic state. It it allows you to release things from the psyche. Like it just allows you to, and it's not like you have to go and revisit it. It just starts pouring out. Like you just let it go. And so, that phase in the class where we went through and we did that last section was all on parasympathetic activity. I mean, that really is about like re-educating the some of the defenses and your ability to let things go, because if you remember, it's tied to the will to power. So it has a very strong impact on um, like the defensive part of your will, like the part of the will associated with the basic chakra, which is tied to like the will to survive, like your body just trying to survive whatever it is. And so, from there is a lot of physiological emotion can arise, and a lot of just these responses that are being driven, and like just calm it down. And it's amazing how the body just goes like it just, it's not even your lungs, it's like your whole body just takes this big
yeah.
like relaxing breath. And so I always find that to be very, very soothing. And I have this one story where um, back when I was seeing people in person, some people would seek me out or whatever, and sometimes it was the husband of somebody was being brought and the husband wasn't too happy to be there. It was a decent amount of that. Somebody talked him into it, or a friend sent them or something. And somehow I started working on a bunch of people from the SWAT team in the town that I lived on. And these guys had like tons of stress, and they usually had these really weird injuries from, whatever, wrestling with somebody or falling or something. And, I had this one guy come in and from the tactical unit. And, first off, I said, okay, he was coming to me for some back pain. And I was like, okay, has there been, what's your stress levels? She goes, no stress, it's fine. And I was like, okay, just that makes me laugh because he's a SWAT team member. And then, I start asking him more questions. And I go, okay, any recent injuries or anything? And he's like, no. And he's got a short sleeve shirt on. He's got abrasions all over his arms. And I go, so what's with the abrasions? And he's like, well, yesterday I fell through a roof and the roof crashed in and fell in front of the person they were trying to apprehend, and we started wrestling for the gun and da 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 da, and finally got him pinned, and he had this whole story. And then I said, and that's not stressful? And he's like, no. Like, oh, I don't even know what to say there. But he had the injury, he had all this, and like when he walked in, he was really like his body was really misaligned. Like you could visibly see like he was out of alignment. He almost looked like a question mark, like he was so like kind of twisted. And so, I had a table that I had him lay on, and I put a variation of the Paracelsus just like on his wrist, like probably like 12 drops or something. And I was getting ready to do some work, and so I was turning around to get some other oils to apply to a spine, and he was already up and starting to leave the door. And I was like, where are you going? Did I already offend you or something? And he was like, no. I was like, well, where are you going? We're only 10 minutes in, and I still have some stuff to do. He was like, I feel better. Like my back doesn't hurt. Like, and he was no longer that question mark. Like, his back wasn't all twisted. And granted, it was an acute injury, but he had a long-term injury that had gotten exaggerated with a fall through the roof. But it literally was me just putting his body in a parasympathetic state with just that blend. And his body was already starting to let go of tension, let go of this. And I would imagine the stress that went along with it. And also that idea, like if you think about what he said, like there was this thing where like, this isn't stressful, this isn't scary, this isn't anything, and there's kind of like an armor that he had to have up to be able to do his job. Mm-hmm. And when he wasn't doing his job, he couldn't put the armor down. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing to be able to go do that at work, but at home, you don't need to have that armor up, right? And so it was literally that component of allowing that armor to relax so that he can go, oh, you don't have to have your defenses up. You don't have to always, granted, there's times for a guy like that, he had to, but it didn't have to be 24/7. And so his body was mirroring that 24/7 like armor that was up. And just putting that on there, I didn't even have him inhale it. I just simply put it on his skin, and it made that big of a difference from him. And I was like, would you like a little bottle of it? And he was like, yeah, that would be good. Like he didn't even care about like going home with some. He was just like, yeah, I feel better. And so I knew some of his buddies, and I said, was he just kind of pulling my leg and just wanted to get out of there? They go, no, he felt better. Like he felt way better. So, it was just one application even. I think most times it would take more, but in his particular case, it was enough.
So it's the one oil that causes this, or was it the progression of previous oils leading up to this one?
It definitely stands on its own, but like that whole little series that we did is all targeting different aspects of the parasympathetic activity, which increases your ability to let go. But I would say like that one, that probably resonated with you to really stimulate the process. But I would say that it would probably resonate with just about anybody.
It was so dramatic.
Yeah. That's the one. The reason why it's called Paracelsus is that old alchemist named that Paracelsus. That was considered the first liniment that somebody made. You know, they put herbs and alcohol, and they used to put it in like with ash and stuff like this. And but then he would, you know, regardless of what people would come to him for, he would just rub that stuff all over them and then go, okay, no, go lay down. And basically, he would just put people in rest and repair mode and then let their body begin healing itself.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the
Which
blue,
is also mental, like, you know what I mean? Like it's having an impact on the body, but because the body's being treated, it also has an impact on the mind.
so what does that say regarding the chronic pain?
Anytime you're in chronic pain, it becomes harder and harder for you to go into parasympathetic activity. I mean, that is simple mechanics. And so whenever you have pain, it starts putting your body in more of a sympathetic state. You know, you basically start to go more and more into fight, flight, or fight, flight, and freeze. And it becomes harder because it's like a push-pull thing between those two parts of the nervous system. You're either in sympathetic or you're in parasympathetic. And so if you're in pain, the tendency is to not go into parasympathetic as much, and you keep going more and more into sympathetic response because your body is responding to pain, that then it starts getting triggered to go fight, flight, freeze, fight, flight, freeze, fight, flight, freeze. And so with chronic pain, the difficulty is that it becomes harder and harder to get good sleep. It gets harder and harder to shift over to that rest and repair mode. And so sometimes you have to manually bring your body into that so that it can go into rest and repair mode. And usually if you can get that down, it will reduce some of the pain symptoms, and there'll even be some regeneration. And so when the body is in pain for a long period of time, that becomes one of the goals, like the therapeutic goals that you're trying to do is, you know, improve the quality of sleep, improve the ability for the body to go into rest and repair mode. So when you've had chronic pain and that is, you're not going deeper into parasympathetic state, it just means it's been there a long time. Like it's mechanically going to happen to anybody who's having that pain. So there's no like big thing that it means something, you know, it's just literally the byproduct of long-term pain, like puts you in there. So the more that you manage the pain, the more that you regulate the nervous system, the more you support parasympathetic activity, the more you try to deepen sleep, you know, all those things, all of those contribute to you have a better sense of well-being, having better cognitive function, but also reduces the pain that you have in your body. You know, so there's many layers to the pain syndromes. You know, that's why, like when I talk about the first several times I taught the pain class, like the booklet was they're not fancy like they are now with Letty's work, but they were about 200 pages. But it can be so complex in treating things that you know, I was teaching it to healthcare providers, and they were like, yeah, this is too involved. A lot of them would only see somebody like during the crisis. They weren't looking at long-term pain management. It's probably more of an approach that would be by a pain management specialist rather than somebody who's just seeing somebody because there's an injury or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And blue tansy, I felt attracted to that. I don't know what that was actually doing.
I have to look up to see what that was. I can tell you in just a sec.
I think that was prior to.
Yeah.
We use it for allostasis
Allostasis and that.
and the parasympathetic.
Right.
Okay.
Streets it. Boy, it's right there in front of me. Okay. Let me get in there because even I even have to look this stuff up. I forget. Allostasis. Yes, allostasis, marjoram, poplar, Paracelsus. So when you got, okay, so when you're doing that, part of how it's being used here is to also re-educate that part of the nervous system. And remember how we were talking about when the nervous system like functions a particular way for even a short amount of time, that just almost becomes like the new norm. And so even the idea where the sympathetic state, you're in more of the sympathetic state and not very much into that rest and repair mode for a little bit, at some point your body just goes, yeah, this is what we do. We, instead of going 50-50, we're going to be 80% fight flight and only 20% rest and repair. And then even when it's time to go, okay, it's time to rest now, your body is like, yeah, but we're 80-20, we're not 50-50. So this idea, like with this pattern, it's to re-educate that process so you can go, no, let's get back to 50-50. That's where we're going to move towards. So even if you just work that one particular oil with that pattern, it would help with that reestablishing that process.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's really helpful.